Good evening, good day, or afternoon, depending on how you're looking at it. Hi guys, this is Laura McKinley, your co-host of Haunted Here and Haunted There. I'm over here in the States, so I'm kicking it off. And I'm starting us off on the West Coast. We're going to that city of Los Angeles. Yes, I'm going to Los Angeles, and we're going to the most iconic sign. That sign that's a symbol of hopes and dreams, of recognition, and something that's untouchable, the Hollywood sign. At night, those white letters don't seem to reflect light. They seem to cast shadows, and sometimes those shadows move. Let's start it off. I'm talking about the shadow figures of the famous Hollywood sign. But these figures, they're not so much human. They're almost, cookie cutters. And if you're hiking the trails behind the Hollywood sign, these figures make you feel like you're not alone up there. There have been reports of these figures near the sign that don't come from one era. They stretch across decades. Hikers, photographers, we got security patrolmen, different people, same description. Tall, human-shaped silhouettes, but wrong. Too dark against the darkness, almost like cutouts of the reality itself. One witness described it as, I thought it was a person standing between the letters. But then it moved, but it didn't walk. It almost was like sliding, gliding almost. Some people say that the shadow figures don't cast shadows. They are the shadows. It makes these sightings so unsettling that it's not what people see, it's how the figures move. They don't walk, they don't float, they shift or even glide. Sometimes they can appear several feet away, and then in seconds, they're in your face. Imagine that. Kind of creepy if you ask me. One patrolman said that he was back there patrolling the trails, and he swore he saw a figure standing behind the letter D, only to have it reappear in seconds behind the letter H. That distance would have taken a normal human minutes to walk. He said it didn't walk, it traveled. And there was no sound. The Hollywood sign has gravel all around it. You hear people walking. You hear the sound of crunching. There was nothing. There was silence. There wasn't even the wind. That's where it gets worse. People rarely see this. They just describe two figures, sometimes three, standing apart, watching the city or watching them. And occasionally they move in sync. And I'm not talking the band either. That's what one hiker witnessed, and a photographer said the same thing. They both left. They didn't run, they didn't look back, and they haven't been back. He said it felt like something had followed him down the trail, and said there was no footsteps either. He just had the feeling that he was being watched. Now, with the age that we have with smartphones, you would think getting pictures of these sightings would be easy, but they're not. Pictures come out blurry. Letters looks like they have streaks going through them. You take videos to try and see that there's something passing between the letters, and there's nothing there when you replay it. But you know what you saw. You saw a figure standing behind the O or on one of the L's. You saw it with your naked eye, but you replay it back screen by screen, frame by frame. Nothing. Your friends do the same. There's nothing there, but you both know what you saw. It's kind of creepy. So what are the shadow figures people want to know? There's theories. Some believe that they're tied to the tragedy of Peg, which I'm sure Lisa will get into. So I'll leave you guys wondering who Peg is. And that her death had opened up something or left something behind. Others think that it goes deeper. Long before the sign, before Hollywood, those hills were considered spiritually sensitive land. A place where boundaries between the worlds weren't entirely stable. No ghosts, no spirits, but something else entirely. Shadow entities, drawn to emotion, to attention, to places where people come searching for something and leave with nothing. Kind of like Los Angeles itself. Funny how it gets its name. If you ask anyone who has an encounter with these shadow figures, they'll tell you it's not what you see, but it's how you felt. There's a sudden drop in temperature, silence where sound should be, and an unmistakable sense that you've been noticed, and not in a good way either. But it's not something curious, but something aware. The Hollywood sign stands as a promise, fame, success, recognition, but maybe it's something else. It's a gathering point, a place where things unseen gather in the dark. So if you ever hike those trails at night and you see something moving between the letters, don't assume a person, and don't assume that you're alone or it's alone. And whatever you do, don't let it see that you're watching, because out there in the shadow of the sign, something might already be watching you back. And with that, I'm going to hand you guys off to Lisa, and she can tell you all about Peg. Remember, guys, sleep with one eye open tonight. Love your faces. Bye.
So thank you, Laura. For those of you that don't know, I'm Lisa. I'm the other half of Haunted Here and Haunted There. And I'm going to jump straight in because Laura did an impeccable job as usual. So by the early 1930s, the Hollywood sign wasn't just a landmark, it had become something else, a symbol of ambition, opportunity, and everything Hollywood promised. But in 1932, that same symbol became the setting of one of the darkest stories. September 18th, 1932, high above Los Angeles, a young actress climbed the structure behind the Hollywood sign. Step by step, higher above the city that was supposed to change her life, she reached the top of the letter H. And then she stepped forward. By morning, her body would be found, and her name was Peg Entwistle. Peg wasn't just another hopeful chasing fame. She already had a career. She was a Broadway actress, a theatre performer with real reviews and real recognition and real momentum. Critics described her as someone who made audiences stop and pay attention. She even performed alongside rising stars of the time. This wasn't someone who was trying to break in, this was somebody who already had a place. And Hollywood was supposed to be the next step. When Peg arrived in Los Angeles, she signed with a major studio, a real chance, a real breakthrough, and she was cast in a film called 13 Women. A psychological drama, dark and unsettling, the kind of role that should have opened doors, but that was it. The moment changed everything. It was supposed to change the world for her. But when the film was released, something had changed. Due to the censorship at the time, large parts of the film were cut, including many of Peg's scenes. The role that was meant to introduce her into Hollywood barely showed her at all. And not long after, her contract was dropped. No next film, no second chance, just silence. In the days before her death, Peg was staying with a family in Los Angeles, and on the evening of September 18th, she told them she was going out to meet friends, but instead, she made her way alone into the hills, to the Hollywood sign. At the time, it wasn't secured, no barriers, no cameras, just a towering structure overlooking the city, and she climbed a ladder behind the letter H. And sometime that night, she stepped off. Next morning, hikers found her body below the sign, nearby her belongings and a note. A short message, a goodbye, a quiet final. The conclusion was simple. The young actress faced rejection. Overwhelmed by a dream that hadn't worked out, she took her own life. And for most people, that's where the story ends. But Peg Entwistle didn't disappear into history. Her story stayed, attached to that place, because over the years, people have reported something strange in the hills beneath the Hollywood sign. A woman, dressed in 1930s clothing, walking alone, appears suddenly and then disappears just as quickly. Some say they smell gardenias, a scent not visible, but it lingers in the air. Others say their dog refuses to move, as if reacting to something they can't see. Is it a ghost, or is it something else? A moment that never really left the hillside. Because the truth is, Peg Entwistle had everything she needed to succeed. Talent, recognition and momentum, and still, it wasn't enough. She climbed the very symbol of that dream and never came back down. And now her story remains part of that sign. Not a success story, but a reminder that behind every dream factory, there are stories that we do not see. So if you find yourself looking up at the sign, just remember, some stories don't end when they are over. They stay exactly where it happened. And this has been Haunted Here and Haunted There. Thank you for listening. We'll see you again very soon. Bye for now.